Hello, I'm Declan Harvey and this is BBC Newsline, the headlines. GPs vote to reduce some services if a new funding deal isn't agreed with the Health Minister.
Either you want to support general practice and have us there to see patients, or you don't. It's that simple. I mean, this is a political decision not to support general practice.
Survivors of mother and baby homes protest at Stormont over plans to exclude thousands of women from a redress scheme.
Well, very simply, if you died before 2011, you're entitled to nothing. It's a cost-cutting exercise and it's a very cruel. It's horrible. And we're not prepared to accept it.
Scientists warn toxic heavy metals dumped over centuries in our peatlands are at risk to all our health. A Lurgan teenager becomes the youngest person to swim solo from here to Scotland. The German football fans who came to watch their team play Glenavon in a European tie 65 years after the match was first called off. We'll tell you why and tell you who won.
And it's been a pleasant day with plenty of sunshine, and the good news is it's set to heat up throughout the week. I'll be back with your full forecast just before 7.
You're very welcome to the programme. It's Monday the 7th of July and GPs are putting as much pressure as they can on the Health Minister to increase the amount of money they are given to run their practices. To prove their point, family doctors have voted in favour of withdrawing any services they currently provide that are not explicitly funded by the Department of Health. Eve Rosado has been finding out exactly what they are and what it could mean for patients.
The action that GPs have agreed to take, should the Health Minister refuse to reopen negotiations on this year's pay deal, shouldn't make it harder for you to see your GP, but it may change the types of things your GP can do for you. Things, the BMA says, are currently not part of a GP's job. Services like ECGs, which test and record heart activity, the filling out of forms, following up on patient bloods that a hospital has asked for.
I've been asking people at this GP practice in East Belfast what they make of this news.
A lot of GPs are under quite a lot of pressure. So they are, especially in certain areas, are much more, let's just say, a lot more patients compared to any other areas. There is a lot of pressure on GP receptionists and doctors, quite a big workload.
You could be waiting weeks, maybe months for an appointment these days.
Where do you place the blame for something like that?
The government. It's all on the government. They're not putting the funding out correctly, so they're not.
Do you feel that patient care is first and foremost?
No, I don't, because you can't get seeing them. And they're just, what would you say? They're diagnosing you over the phone.
Negotiations around funding have been ongoing for some time. In May, Mike Nesbitt imposed a financial package on GPs after they rejected it. He said then that talks had reached an end point. But last week, over 98% of GP BMA members who took part in a ballot were in favour of this action.
The department made an offer of 1 million for access for patients, and that 1 million is equivalent to 50p per patient per year, which is less than a penny a week to improve access. Either you want to support general practice and have us there to see patients, or you don't. It's that simple. I mean, this is a political decision not to support general practice.
Philip McGuigan is the Stormont Health Committee chair.
Clearly the Minister needs to engage directly with GPs. I think if you asked all ministers in the executive, they would say that they need much more money than they currently have to do the job that they want to do. So health is no different, but from a Sinn Féin perspective and an executive perspective, we have prioritised health.
The BBC has asked to speak to the Health Minister, but he hasn't been available. His department did issue a statement saying it had not yet received details of the specific measures that will comprise the collective action, and it added that it was important GPs continue to adhere to the terms of their contract while taking any action, and that there is no negative impact on patient safety and that access to service is maintained. As this unfolds, negotiations for next year's GP contract are opening. Eve Rosado, BBC Newsline.
Two Belfast sisters have vowed to fight to get their late mother acknowledged in the redress scheme for victims of mother and baby homes. Roisin and Lisa Morris say it's unfair thousands of women, like their mum, are being frozen out of the process because they died before a proposed cut-off date. You see, as it stands, only families of those who died after September 2011 will be eligible. That's a decision by the Stormont executive, and it's up to Stormont. A group of protesters travelled today. Our political editor Enda McClafferty reports.
For more than 70 years, buildings like this hid dark and shameful secrets of abuse and cruelty, where more than 10,000 young unmarried women and girls were often forced to give up their babies. What happened in such institutions will now be examined in a public inquiry, alongside a redress scheme to compensate those families affected. But it will only recognise those victims who died after September 2011. And that has angered the families behind this protest today.
Well, very simply, if you died before 2011, you're entitled to nothing. You're just nothing. Your history has just been written out. Whereas if you died after 2011, you will get a sum of £2,000. That's £2,000 for a life. It's a cost-cutting exercise, and it's a very cruel. It's horrible, and we're not prepared to accept it.
Among those affected are Roisin and Lisa Morris, whose mother Madeline was forced to give up her daughter after entering Marionvale in Belfast at the age of 18.
Every mother and every child deserves justice, and it's unfair that they are excluding mothers just because they're dead. The dead can't speak for themselves, but we will.
We only found out last year that Mummy had this daughter, and it's just been hard to get our heads around that. And then we have this where she's not going to be acknowledged for the fact that she was put into there, and it's just hard.
They also believe the cut-off date has been included to reduce the costs to the public purse, and are calling for it to be removed. Legislation to set up the scheme cleared its first stage in the Stormont Assembly last month, but it's not expected to complete its passage until later this year. Enda McClafferty, BBC Newsline, Stormont.
Well, meanwhile, a team of international experts has joined Irish specialists to start the forensic excavation of a site linked to an historic mother and baby home in County Galway. In 2016, a mass grave was found at the tomb site, which had been run by the Bon Secours nuns. A large number of human remains belonging to babies and children up to the age of 3 were discovered. They've since become known as the tomb babies, and this fuller analysis of the site will begin next week.
While people often ask, this must be harrowing, it is of course, but we're part of the change, we're part of the story that's answering the questions, we're part of providing the evidence of, speaking for these children who can't speak anymore, and that's an extremely privileged position to be in, of course, but it's also, it puts a positive aspect to your work.
Now, we've long known our precious peatlands work hard to remove carbon dioxide from the air by trapping it. But for the last 2 centuries or so, since industrialisation, it seems our bogs have also been holding on to toxic pollution, including lead, mercury and even arsenic. But here's the problem. As wildfires and climate change damage our peatland, it could begin to spill out the stuff it's been protecting us from. Our agriculture and environment correspondent, Louise Cullen, has more.
3, 2, 1.
This lowland bog in the Antrim Hills holds millennia of carbon and almost 2 centuries worth of industrial human pollution.
Some of the pollutants, we're talking about are things like lead, mercury, arsenic, cadmium, all those sorts of things lots of people have heard about, I'm sure. So for example, this site we're in, there's a lot of pollution here that originated from Belfast and has been deposited, come through the air and been deposited on the site. It's now locked on into the peat.
We've got high levels of lead in this black section here. With increasing rates that decomposition is happening, the concentrations of those pollutants are becoming higher and higher towards the surface, which, as you can imagine, is the most vulnerable to burning, to damage from drainage and drying out. So our most vulnerable peats are actually also those that are most contaminated.
The team has analysed cores from here and around the world, including this one from the high Arctic, As well as finding heavy metals, they've found pollution travels.
Really eye-opening, really crazy to think that even though there's hardly any people up around here, that they're still filled with contamination. It just shows how connected we are throughout the globe.
A peatland strategy to protect these places is awaiting executive approval. In the lab, the team uses an environmental chamber to test the effects of a warming climate, drought and wildfires.
If I just angle it towards you a little bit, is that you can see we've performed a controlled burn on the top of this peat sample. As you can see, it's destructed it quite. There's been quite a lot of destruction on top. You can see most of the plant material has burnt away. We're getting some growth coming back, but we worry that that's not enough growth to really protect ourselves into the future.
Scale the effects up to a site like this, and for Graham and the team, there is only one answer.
It's really clear we need to ensure these peatlands are kept wet. We need to restore them, rehabilitate them, block drains. It is fundamental.
Louise Cullen, BBC Newsline.
Well, there's more on that groundbreaking research on our website this evening. There's the address for you. You will, of course, also find it on the BBC News app. Still to come on this programme, though, before 7 o'clock, a warning for people to stay back from the seal pups on our beaches. Now, this is Oscar Black, and in the photo he is seen battling the cold while also trying his best to avoid currents and jellyfish, all to break a record. Oscar is only 15 and he has become the youngest person to complete the North Channel swim between here and Scotland. He jumped in at the Gobbins near Larne and 17 hours later had made it to Port Patrick. Our South East reporter Cormac Campbell has the story.
So, where you go, mate? As school holiday projects go, it doesn't get tougher than this. Last week, Lurgan's Oscar Black became the youngest person to successfully swim the North Channel between the Gobbins and Port Patrick. That journey was meant to be 35 kilometres, but due to strong currents, it ended up being a more than 16-hour, 46-kilometre epic.
I don't think many people understand the stuff I do. I think I tell them I do a big swim and they think it's like 100 metres or so, but they don't understand that I've swam from one country to another country. It's due for me being in the water for so long. I was dizzy. I fell over when I got to the beach, so I did. But it's hard to comprehend the magnitude of the swim I just done. It's just unbelievable.
Backing up Oscar was a small team of family, coaches and club mates.
He has to swim 3 hours by himself, and then I can jump in for the 4th hour, and then just to give him a wee bit of a mental boost, because it's very lonely just swimming by yourself. And then I've got to wait 2 hours and then I can get back in, wait 2 hours, then get back in. So at the end I had to swim with him because he started swimming the wrong way, because the boat could only go so far because it got really shallow. So he was left to his own devices and he was going to England, so I had to get in and guide him to the beach.
The next few weeks will be all about celebration and recovery. After that, Oscar will start preparing for his next big challenge, completing his GCSEs. Cormac Campbell, BBC Newsline, Lurgan.
80 years ago, this brave US pilot crashed to his death in County Tyrone. He was only 21 when he died, and it was all the sadder because he'd flown in and survived the Second World War, only to lose his life during his final scheduled flight before returning home to his wife and newborn son in the States. His plane came down in farmland, and only now, as Niall McCracken reports, has a memorial been placed to remember him.
The sound of pipes playing in a quiet country lane as a mark of respect, remembering a fallen pilot. At the entrance of this field in the townland of Eskra, members of the local community recently gathered to pay tribute to First Lieutenant Fred A. Barton of the US Air Force. A memorial stone has been erected in a spot close to a nearby field where the pilot from the US state of Georgia lost his life after his plane got into trouble exactly 80 years ago this month. He was only 21 years old.
Fred had completed his tour of duty as required at that time, which was 35.
combat missions, and he had joined a maintenance group as a test pilot on a Sunday, the 1st of July 1945. He decided to have one last flight. He was due to pull out the next day, and then they would be transported back to America. The war was over for them. He took the aircraft out. Unfortunately, the aircraft he took out had a terrible reputation for mechanical failures, particularly engine failures.
So he was to return home to his wife and his young son of 3 or 4 months, whom he had never seen. So it's just so tragic.
Members of Lieutenant Barton's family were unable to make it from the United States back to County Tyrone, but some were able to connect via video calls and watch it remotely.
He's my great uncle. The word that keeps coming to my mind is tender. I feel like this community that's so far away has really held that memory so tenderly, and which is so touching. I guess almost poetic to me. There's something about the past and present sort of reaching out to sort of brush fingertips, almost as if Fred has fostered this connection.
Extended members of Lieutenant Barton's family are already making plans to come and visit the memorial stone for themselves. They also hope it will help others remember for generations to come. Niall McCracken, BBC Newsline, County Tyrone.
Now, a football match that should have been played in Lurgan in 1960 finally went ahead at the weekend. It was to be between Glenavon and East German champions Erzgebirge Aue in the European Cup. But at the time, fans and players were blocked from coming here because of the Cold War. Finally, though, at the weekend, 1,000 German fans arrived in Lurgan for the long-delayed game. So who eventually won? Mark Simpson was there.
The singing began 3 hours before kick-off. The 1,200 German fans then paraded through Lurgan to Mourneview Park Stadium. Most of them weren't born when this fixture was supposed to take place in 1960, but at the weekend it finally happened.
Very emotional, even for us Germans, who are very harsh and maybe sometimes a little bit difficult. But I see a lot of tears today. For fans, it's amazing.
Today has been a wee bit overwhelming. When we first came up with a bit of a crazy idea, to be honest with you, we never imagined bringing 1,000 people here to Lurgan.
Those fans are enjoying themselves.
Very, very much so. I think they've enjoyed themselves from maybe Thursday.
Everybody was looking at you.
Yeah.
Why?
Because I was drinking the local beverage, the Backfast. All the people were like cheering at me like a local star, and it's how do you call it? Lurgan champagne, right?
For most of these fans who made the 1,000-mile trip from Eastern Germany, it was their first visit to Northern Ireland, but it might not be their last.
The fans love it and they will come back. They see what a beautiful country, what a nice people, friendly club, and they will come back.
As for the football, the German team won 2-0. But this match wasn't about victory, it was about history. Mark Simpson, BBC Newsline.
Now, if you're heading to the coast this week, with or without some Lurgan champagne, you might be lucky enough to spot a seal pop along the shore. And that is because it is popping season for our native harbour seals. But experts are urging the public to stay back and not approach the animals. Gráinne Connolly has been finding out why.
Northern Ireland's waters are home to around 1,100 harbour seals. June and July is their typical pupping season, and a lot of the animals are born on busy public beaches, so there is a good chance you could spot one. But staff at Northern Ireland's only seal rescue and rehabilitation centre in Portaferry say getting too close to the pups can lead to their mother rejecting them.
Abandonment is the biggest issue that we see in here, and like I say, a lot of that could potentially be called mum's fault when we do have seals born on these really busy beaches. Certainly trying to give them as much space as we can if we are seeing seals, trying to back off as quickly as we can. A few years ago we had a grey seal who was kind of moved about by some members of the public, and we went back the next day to check on him, and he had been bitten all over. We think what happened there was that Mum had he'd gone up to Mum then looking for some food. She didn't know who he was and was trying to get rid of him.
Staff at the rescue centre are bracing themselves for another busy period, with 5 harbour pups already admitted.
Sort of back end of June into July is when we'll see most of them being born. That's our biggest concern. They are the smaller of the 2 species of seal that we have around Northern Ireland, and their numbers have not done quite as well as grey seals have over the last sort of 40-45 years or so.
The goal is to release all rescued pups back into the wild later in the year. Grania Conley, BBC Newsline.
Well, the week's weather on the way shortly. First, though, let's bring you some sport, because the British and Irish Lions won their latest tour match on Saturday, beating the Waratahs in a low-key performance. Head coach Andy Farrell insists places are still up for grabs for the first test against Australia in less than a fortnight's time. Today, he named his side to face the Brumbies this Wednesday, with 8 Ireland players in the starting 15, including Bundyaki and Gary Ringrose in midfield, and also Jamieson Gibson-Park at scrum half. Nigel Ringland is in Canberra for us.
Mitchell to Bellotta. Oh, he's found Jones. That is a combination that is tried and tested.
The somewhat laboured 21-10 win over the Waratahs wasn't the free-scoring spectacle of the previous 2 games, but job done as far as the Lions were concerned.
I think we kept giving it a go, and it was, that was the main thing, that we kept at it, and that's why we kept getting back into their 22s. And it was just, the final pass, or just the lead up to something we dropped the ball, or give away a turnover, and didn't stop us from going again then, and getting the ball back and having another crack.
The Lions have moved on to Australia's capital city, Canberra, for their next challenge against the Brumbies on Wednesday, and it's expected to be the toughest of the tour so far. 8 Ireland players will start the game, and the feeling is that the lineup may be close to head coach Andy Farrell's preferred test side to take on the Wallabies a week on Saturday.
There's always going to be speculation, but it's up to people to put the best foot forward for a test spot, isn't it, from now on in regards to the chance that they've got on Wednesday and on Saturday. I suppose players can play themselves in and play themselves out at the same time, but at the same time all we're looking for is a cohesive team performance, and that's at the forefront of what we're trying to achieve.
With just 2 games before that first test, the intensity on this Lions tour now cranks up a notch. Nigel Ringland, BBC Newsline, Canberra.
Ireland beat Georgia by 34 points to 5 in Tbilisi on Saturday night. Under interim head coach Paul O'Connell, they scored 4 tries to their hosts' 1, but the comprehensive victory did come at a cost. Ulster's Jacob Stockdale has been ruled out of their next match with Portugal on Saturday after suffering a shoulder injury, and is to see a specialist. In GAA, Cork will face Tipperary in the All-Ireland hurling final after victories over the weekend. And Tyrone are All-Ireland minor Gaelic football champions. They claimed the title for the first time in 15 years after a 1-point victory over Kerry. Here's Thomas Kane.
Tyrone miners top of the tree once more. They were pushed all the way to get their hands on the trophy, edging out Kerry in Newbridge.
What about our boys at the end there? 4 down, 12 minutes to go against the wind. That's just them boys, never say die. It's just incredible. That final whistle going will be a memory I'll remember the rest of my life. Them boys give some performance there in that last 15 to come out, and it hasn't sunk in yet, to be perfectly honest.
One player unable to be involved in the final was key forward Joel Kerr, who joined Premier League side West Ham just days before the decider.
We knew from the very start this was going to be problematic. We knew July 1st was his cut-off date, and absolutely no issues with West Ham. They have financial investment in the kid. But what a lad, and it's just unbelievable that Jim Martin, who came in for him, got the winning point to win. Joel has allowed a medal, and I'm just delighted for him.
Tyrone already celebrating. Tipperary are one step away themselves. But their semi-final victory was not without controversy. The scoreboard inside Croke Park incorrectly awarding a point for this late effort, which was clearly signalled wide by the umpires. As a result, Kilkenny had been pushing for a goal in injury time when there were in fact just 2 points, not 3 between the sides. The GA acknowledged the mistake in a subsequent statement and are now awaiting the referee's report. It was a lot more straightforward for Cork in the other semi. They hit 7 goals against Dublin to set up an All-Munster, All-Ireland final on the 20th of July. Thomas Kane, BBC Newsline.
Now take a look at this, a gorgeous golden wheat field in Ballykelly to be enjoyed by all, not least Cocker Spaniel Penny, who's having a ball. If you want to see your Weather Watcher picture on our wall, send it in. The details easily found online. Meanwhile, Ali, what a week we have, weather-wise ahead of us.
Absolutely, and you would nearly miss Penny sitting there if you didn't, because she's exactly the same colour as that wheat field. But yes, we have a great week in store, and it's been a really pleasant day as well so far. So we've had some really interesting photos coming into our Weather Watchers with some very interesting cloud formations, just like this one. But it did start off with clear blue skies, especially here in Ballymena this morning. However, some showers have actually made their way in this evening, so if you're around there, you might need your brolly. So this evening, some showers and patchy cloud will make its way through. However, throughout the night, skies will start to clear, and under the clear skies, temperatures will be a touch cooler than last night, sitting around 10 to 11 degrees. But tomorrow is set to be quite a cloudy and dull day. It should be dry for most of the day, but if you look out your window, you might see something a little similar to that. There'll be sunshine to start off with in the east, however, but that cloud will push its way in from the west throughout the day. That will also bring the chance of some showers and light rain as well at times, with temperatures sitting around 19 to 20 degrees. Less of a breeze round, so it could feel quite mild and muggy at times as well. Tomorrow night, there'll be the best in the evening time, there will be plenty of late sunshine, with the cloud moving in towards the night time. So it'll be quite a cloudy and muggy night, lows sitting around 11 to 14 degrees in most places. And those muggy temperatures start a trend for the rest of the week. Conditions will become more humid, so that means higher temperatures during the day and the night time. So that might be a good thing for the daytime, but not so nice when you're trying to sleep at night. Having a look at Wednesday, it's quite a cloudy start to the day right across Ireland. It should be dry for most of the day, but there may be the odd spot of rain and drizzle here and there. Temperatures rising, as you can see, sitting around 21 to 22 degrees for most places. Well, looking at the rest of the week, it is set to be a great week. Temperatures are rising, could hit 25 on Saturday, with plenty of sunshine in the forecast, especially for the bank holiday weekend. Declan?
Ali, thank you very much. Right, that's BBC Newsline on this Monday. New week of programmes up and running. I'll update you again at 10:35 this evening, and join us again at 6:30 tomorrow. But whatever you have planned, enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye-bye.